China has always been suspicious of its presence and how it would be accepted by the rest of the world. And so China didn't simply want access to resources. China could always get access to resources on the international market. You could buy, or you could buy whatever you wanted on the international market, but China wanted access at source, right? And the Chinese suspicion was vindicated, right, with the trade war and everything. So China didn't want to have to depend on other people for material, for resources that it considered crucial to its economy. And so it wanted access to this at source. So Chinese companies went into Africa and negotiated deals with African governments for access to iron ore, gold, diamond, oil, whatever you can think about. They developed that. And for the first time, something changed. It wasn't simply that, but China offered a completely different model than the one that we had seen before. So you can, and listen, everything I'm saying here today, obviously you're free to check it out later. But recently there was a report where 101 companies either listed on the London Stock Exchange or domiciled in the UK own the rights to $1 trillion of resources in Africa. So the resources are in the ground in Africa, but ownership to these resources, right, access to these resources is for companies that are listed on the London Stock Exchange. And that's how it was done. A Western company, or Chevron, shows up in an African country, signs an agreement with an African government, and the way it works is we pay you in terms of royalty and taxes, and then the government was responsible to take the resources and develop its country, pay for services, pay for infrastructure. China offered a different model, resource for oil, for infrastructure deals. So basically the Chinese offer was, against payment on resources you should have, you can take out a loan and build the infrastructure you need. And up to today, Africa still lags the rest of the world on every measure of infrastructure coverage, especially with paved roads and electricity. I'll give you an example, and I always like to use this because it tells you how stark it is, that only 43% of the roads in Africa are paved, and 30% of all the paved roads in Africa are in one country, South Africa. That is the scale of the infrastructure gap on the continent. And because especially Africa south of the Sahara, doesn't have the resources, doesn't have the infrastructure on which to be able to build a modern economy, last year, well, 2017, Africa's total share of global trade was equal to South Korea, which is around 2.93%. This is a continent of about 1 billion people. And so when the Chinese show up, and for the first time begin to build infrastructure that was not geared on the colonial infrastructure that most African countries inherited. The colonial infrastructure was basically the center and the periphery, and it was intended to take resources from the periphery and take it to the center. Now, in a world where regional value chains and global value chains are becoming prevalent, that's not possible in Africa because the infrastructure was not meant to connect African country to African country. It was meant to connect African country to the hosts, to the colonial, whatever. What China is doing now in terms of the infrastructure that they're building is connecting African cities, African capitals, making it possible for global value chains, regional value chains to develop. So it wasn't as if China showed up in Africa in a vacuum. It was that the relationship that most African countries had, there were things missing from it. It was a bit inadequate.